like to introduce Gail Brandeis once again to speak about our student Chelsea Cunningham.
I've had so much fun getting to know and work with Chelsea over her time here. When we worked together over the semester, we would often meet at Ivy Coffee Lab and talk about her work over coffee. And I would think, this is work? It was just so much fun. She would always make me laugh. And if you have a chance, ask her to tell you the story about when she hit herself in the mouth with a cane while she was on stage. She's hilarious. Her work has so much wit and heart, and she's just a rip-roaring storyteller. Her thesis is a space cowboy romp, an epic, that I have had just such a blast working on with her. And Chelsea started out as a writer writing fan fiction, and I have no doubt that she will garner many, many fans of her own over the course of her writing career. I am most definitely a fan. So congratulations, Chelsea.
Please say hello again to our commencement speaker, Alan Heathcock, so he can introduce his student, Brandon Dudley.
Brandon Dudley is a rare kind of student in that he, from the first story we workshopped together, I saw he had this thing called talent. Which is to say, there were evidence of skill sets, of reading, that he was already functioning at a very high level. What made him completely unique, though, is that he had a powerful thirst for learning, never resting. I could never throw enough at him, and he took everything in and he would digest it and he would push it further and further and further. From the first semester I worked with him, there was a gap in time until this past spring. We were both in Chamonix, France, at the Mont Blanc writing workshops. And we were standing on a deck, and it was evening, and we were having a cocktail, and the sunlight was on the French Alps. And we both were kind of talking about that first semester together, and I told him that I wanted him to recognize that his words had got him to travel across the other side of the planet, and that he was traveling there because of all of that hard work. That capacity to learn would continue to take his work to places and him along with it. I think the sky is the limit. He's a beautiful human being and a fabulous writer, and I'm very proud to congratulate him on his graduation.
Please welcome Stephen Church to speak about his student, Brandon Lingle.
Brandon Lingle is an active Air Force public affairs officer and a proud father to 3 kids. He's a native of California. He's taught in the Air Force Academy's English department, and he currently serves as an editor for the literary magazine War Literature and the Arts. Brandon once climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, just for the hell of it, but he probably won't tell you this because he's also one of the most humble, kind, and generous student writers I've ever taught. I remember when Brian asked me if I'd be willing to work with Brandon, I Googled his name because I thought it sounded familiar. And then I quickly realized why it sounded familiar. Brandon's writing has already appeared in some of the best literary venues in the country, including the New York Times War at War blog, Guernica, the North American Review, Narrative, The Rumpus, Zone 3, Southeast Review, and others. His essay, Turbulence, a beautiful piece of writing which we workshopped last summer and which appears in his MFA thesis, is forthcoming from the acclaimed literary magazine, The American Scholar. And Brandon has also had 3 essays named as notable in the annual Best American Anthology. So I told Brian that I'd be willing to work with Brandon, but only if he agrees to take his writing a little more seriously. It has been a just amazing honor and joy to work with Brandon this last year on his essays and on his thesis, and to see the grace, skill, and linguistic muscle with which he approaches every subject. Please join me in celebrating MFA graduate Brandon Lingle. Okay, let's just all acknowledge the truth. Tenley Lozano is a total badass. After graduating from the U.S. Coast Guard in 2008, Tenley spent 5 years as an officer in the Coast Guard. She worked in the engineering department on a ship that patrolled the Pacific Ocean from Vancouver to the equator, chasing drug-running boats and submarines. And all of this is in her thesis. She also attended Navy dive school and spent 2 years as a Coast Guard diver. For fun, she used to do deep water free diving without scuba gear. She's tough and smart and also happens to be a fantastic writer. Her nonfiction has already been published in Zero Dark 30, the U.S. Naval Institute blog, The MacGuffin, and in the anthology Incoming Veteran Writers on Coming Home. She recently won the Crab Orchard Review's John Guyan Literary Nonfiction Prize for one of the essays in her thesis, Submerged, a piece we workshopped here last summer. In addition to the Crab Orchard Review, Tenley's writing is forthcoming on the KPBS radio show Incoming and the veteran web series Permission to Speak Freely. She's in the process of applying for a Fulbright fellowship to travel and talk with veterans groups. She's just doing so much stuff. Her day job is as a ship design engineer, which I'm pretty sure involves math. She spends her weekends hiking with her dog, the incomparable Elu, our workshop mascot, a calming presence in the room I think all of us will miss. And for the next 5 weeks, she and Elu will be hiking another stretch of the Pacific Coast Trail, all of which I'm sure will end up in her book, which I'm sure will be published. It's been a fantastic pleasure and an honor to work with Tenley the last year on her essays and her thesis, and really just to witness her tackling the never-ending challenges of writing with the same indomitable spirit and fearlessness with which she approaches everything in her life. Please join me in celebrating MFA graduate Tenley Lozano. I think Amy should give us
The microphone's been Stephen Churched. Please welcome Lee Herrick to introduce his student Luann Mumm.
Oh, Luann Mumm. So many of you have had a hand in her arriving here, of course. Faculty, fellow classmates, friends, and family. And if you have a moment before you leave, I hope you can just grab a moment in the direction of the ones you love. 3 are here, her daughter Leah and her daughter-in-law Elizabeth, who were just married in June, and her son Daniel are here. And I have the good fortune to say a few words. I don't say this lightly. She's one of my favorite poets, and I was thinking about it last night. Can I really say this? And I think I can. She's one of my favorite people in the world. In September 2014, for an assignment in her first packet in my class, she read a 10-page literacy narrative in which I asked her to track her writing and reading history and how she saw it in the future. And she wrote that she loved books more than she cared about fitting in. And I thought, I'm gonna like this person. She graduated high school a year early, worked for a semester, and started college at Iowa State. She finished college in 3.5 years, began teaching the next year. She was 22 and her students were 18. She eventually moved to Park Rapids, Minnesota, began writing poetry, and had 2 children who are here today. She's given so much over the course of her life to her students, her family. We talked over the phone in some of my favorite conversations about making her the focus and making her the one. She's transformative in her writing. She's brave, with the kind of bravery required to write well. Her thesis, That Barbed Rapturous Sting, is fantastic. Poems of rediscovery, reclamation, and liberation. And I know you'll be seeing it on a bookshelf someday, and I hope it's okay I read a very short poem, one of my favorites from the manuscript. It's called Assent, as in to affirm or to agree. And I think it's fitting for the occasion. This is Luann Mum. A red leaf falls into the current, thinking red leaf is its name. On its way to other being, disguises past and falling, red leaves into my red heart falling, taking back their names. Just on a brief personal note, I count you as a good friend. Luann is fiercely compassionate, smart as they come, with a lake-sized heart. The conversations is what I'll remember the most on the phone. My rule of thumb is that I won't take a person's time up, but I'll give as much as they want, or I'll listen. And we had some of my favorite conversations I've ever had. Poetry, your personal life. And now that you're finishing, I still want to call you, and I had this thought, maybe I'll just call her out of the blue, just to want to talk to her. And she'll say, Lee, I'm done with you. But I believe in my heart we will never be done. Hopefully you will remember Sierra in Nevada College. I know our friendship will go on till poetry stops going on, and that's not going to happen. So congratulations, and the world is waiting for you. It's a lucky world. Congratulations, Luann.
Say hello to Alan Heathcock again to introduce his student, Melinda Renkin.
I first met Melinda at residency winter of 2015. And the first thing I noticed was that she had a tremendous imagination and that she was an incredible storyteller. On a personal level, she always had a smile on her face, and when she was around, I found myself happy. We go off into our own private lives, and as I get to know her better, I got to understand all of the formidable challenges of her life, none of which stopped her, none of which slowed her down. And all these months later, I get to read her thesis manuscript, which is this amazing novel filled with imagination, which scared the crap out of me, which made me think and feel and imagine. And it was beautiful and powerful. And I read that about a